Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, or whenever you happen to be listening to this. Welcome to the Film Realist Podcast, the film and TV podcast from a complete nobody. That is hopefully for somebody. My name is Kyle Naranya, and on this week's episode of the podcast, I am going to be reviewing the Super Mario Galaxy movie. Wait, what was that? What are you guys doing here?
We're recording the podcast with you.
I'm not doing this by myself?
Yeah? Didn't you know what we were doing?
No, what are we doing?
Recording the podcast for the Mario Bros. Movie.
Oh, do you guys want to join me?
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to do the non-spoiler section, and then the two of you are going to jump in for spoilers. Sound good?
Yep.
How dare you look at my masterpiece and say that? You think painting is easy? I'll burn the skin off your bones!
The first place to start is actually a really fascinating exploration of the reception to family animated films right now, because there's been a lot of discussion about movies aimed at critics versus the audience, because quite interestingly, the Illumination Twitter profile shared the audience score for the Super Mario Galaxy movie because they can't share the critic score, which, as I am recording, is currently at a 42%, which is obviously not a well-regarded film, specifically under the banner of critics. Fans and audience members, it's actually dropped down 2% since they shared that to 89%. And there needs to be a discussion that's had over the expectations for films aimed at children. If you are a longtime listener of this show, I absolutely love well-crafted films aimed at children and families. Movies that are accessible through multiple age groups. If you are a millennial who grew up through the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, you lived through what could be regarded as the greatest era of family-friendly entertainment, with the Disney Renaissance period that began with The Little Mermaid, ended with Tarzan, and then gave birth to the CGI era with Shrek and all of the different facets that came out of DreamWorks, which eventually led to the resurgence with Disney's CGI animated musicals, and where we are now, post Spider-Verse films or Ninja Turtle films, and there has been a clear shakeup of what we can get within the animated film genre. Unfortunately, the Super Mario Bros. Movie took all the lessons that they've had, or lack thereof, and just sort of made a movie that was very much baked into the nostalgia of what Mario is, and bringing in unnecessary things. And I did a whole review on the first film. I didn't love it. Melody did enjoy it. She, of course, participated in that review. And Melody and Sawyer are going to join me for the spoiler discussion, which likely will be in a dramatically different tone from non-spoilers, just based on the fact that they are children. I am an adult. I have a high appreciation for what we can get in family-friendly. I don't like calling them kids' movies because I think that is diminishing of the art form that we typically get from the other main studios. The Super Mario Galaxy movie didn't learn anything from the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Unfortunately, it doubles down on all of the things I didn't like about the first installment. It's nice to see them bringing in newer, ironically not even newer elements, because the Galaxy games themselves are almost 20 years old at this point, but we are expanding the world and introducing more characters. The problem is there are so many characters that you don't really give anyone enough time to do anything. Mario is the main character of this franchise, and for whatever reason, because of the live action film, I'm not actually sure, but it seems like Nintendo is afraid of doing anything interesting with him at all. I was very critical of the last movie because his entire story or narrative, there was no character growth, was he never gives up. And this movie doesn't present him with any real challenges. He has an interest in Peach, and of course he would. If you've played any Mario game, of course he has an interest in saving Peach, but there might be something more to that. I can't tell you what is in the movie because that would technically be a spoiler, but anything you would expect from the main character of this franchise is nothing. I'm not going to be critical of the voice talent. They are doing what has been asked of them. There was a lot of intrigue into Chris Pratt in the last film. What did he bring to Mario? He's not really given anything to do. The Lego Movie is one of my favorite animated films of all time, and Chris Pratt as Emmett Brichtowski is absolutely fantastic. That blank surface or blank human being and the way that he absorbs all of the different facets of what it means to build quite literally outside of the instructions or outside of the box is an insanely brilliant story about the limits put on creativity. Mario is a plumber. We know that from him, and he has a brother, Luigi. This entire film and runtime is as if we got the makeup gun from Simpsons. I know this is a dated reference, and we're shotgunned everything you could think of that possibly would be connected in the two Mario Galaxy games. To say that there is a cohesive story would be a vast overstatement, hyperbolic in a way that I can't even explain, because every single scene of this movie feels as if it was created in isolation. And to me, that's incredibly frustrating because Illumination's evolution has been a de-evolution. It's devolved. The very first Despicable Me is such an excellent film in the way that it explores chosen family, Gru's trauma from growing up with an unsupportive mother, and choosing to not be that parent for the three children he's chosen. Even if it was for nefarious purposes, he evolves as a human being and becomes their stepfather and realizes the power of being loved, as well as sharing and caring what he's capable of with those three girls. These movies don't have any of that. We get an introduction of more characters, as I said, and they have nothing to do outside of being recognizable characters. It's incredibly frustrating that you go from just one kingdom that obviously had lands that we were familiar with from the other Mario and Nintendo games to then blowing out to the galaxy for sort of no reason outside of wanting to bring in specifically Rosalina. And I am really disappointed in the execution and the use of that character, just because you are introducing a cosmic being that should really significantly change what we think about the world, similar to kind of the trajectory, ironically, another Chris Pratt related thing was the MCU going into space and magic and what that meant, getting to see wild, cool worlds where the interesting parts of the space and galaxy are pretty much everything you see in the trailers, which is really frustrating. They're just sort of there to be there. Most of the Easter eggs and references in this are going to feel incredibly dated for the people that they're going to work for, which also feels counterintuitive to who this movie's for. My kids are under 10. Their exposure to Nintendo is not through anything really that is in these films whatsoever. They're familiar with those characters, specifically from Smash Bros. And Mario Kart, the newest one being Mario Kart World on the Switch 2. And they're there to be there. We know that Fox McCloud is in the movie. Awesome. My sentence about him is as good as it gets. The reason I am overly critical of, I wouldn't even say it's overly, the reason I am as critical of these two films that I am is because Nintendo was so afraid of making a Mario anything for 30 years. And don't get me wrong, if you are purely looking at what is going to make you money, you go to Illumination. They make billions of dollars off of their films, which at the end of the day, it's not shocking, specifically looking at the way that Nintendo acts as a business, specifically with what's happening right now with the cost of their video games. And don't get me started on that. I like to support the things that I'm a fan of, and sometimes it's an unfortunate pill to swallow, but Illumination has completely forgot why they were able to become the studio that they are. The bar should not be getting lower for what we show our kids. The expectations with what is out there should be higher. This movie is going to make so much money, and I get that it's going to. The Super Mario brand is incredibly powerful and recognizable. I liked getting to see Luigi in the frog suit. That suit is fun. But when you are adapting two games where narrative, interestingly enough, you have a lot of flexibility, but it feels as if the entire plot and even the dialogue at some times is just comprised of bullet points. No character has any meaningful conversations. Nothing is ever past the surface level. And with a character that we are so familiar with, it's annoying that you could make films that manage to be touchstones of this genre, the likes of Pixar and DreamWorks, the Spider-Verses, do something with that character, what it means to be quite literally a fish out of water or a plumber out of New York. And 2 films in, we don't seem to care at all about that. And there are Easter eggs and there are moments that are fun. But at the end of the day, the worst part about these movies is they are incredibly disposable. They are forgettable. And they're going to make a third one because of course they are. But I'm going to be honest, I'm definitely going to think more about what they offer, because right now it's not anything at all that's interesting or worthwhile. That will do it for non-spoilers. I know it was incredibly critical, and I know that my conversation with the kids is going to be more upbeat just based on what they're going to react to, so there's going to be a slight dichotomy in the 2 different tones of this review, but when it's just me really diving into what didn't work about the movie, of course that's what you can expect from a man in his mid-30s. So let's not waste any more time, because I know the reason you're listening to this is to hear what Melody and Sawyer had to say, so let's jump through a warp pipe and see what they have to think in spoilers.
I'm Bowser Jr., and I'm gonna be taking my father now!
This was probably the most anticipated movie of the year for children. So what better way to talk about the movie than including what are now dubbed the Film Realist Juniors. I am joined by my children. Of course, if you skip the intro, I don't know why you would do that. They're here to talk full spoilers. So you have been warned. Any twists, fun cameos are going to be spoiled now. So let's talk about the movie. Melody, let's start off with, what was your favorite part of the movie?
I liked when Luigi drew Wimpy, and then he says to Mario, you know I didn't go to art school.
That is one of the through lines throughout the entire movie, is of course Bowser Jr. has this magical paintbrush that I don't think is necessarily explained. And what's so funny to me about watching this movie with the 2 of you is so many of the references, because we have a Nintendo Switch, are going to come out of the games that we have on the Switch. So what you're referring to is, of course, Mr. Game & Watch, who is a Smash Bros. Character, shows up in the climax of it. But what's really funny to me about the nostalgia used in this movie is you 2 haven't played Mario Galaxy. Have you?
No.
No, you haven't played Mario Galaxy, have you, Sawyer?
No, I've never heard of it either.
No, so it's a game that is almost 20 years old now, so some of the references feel even more specific. I know we were chatting about it, and I had this theory, and you can see this in the trailer reactions for the movie that I did, that the movie was going to end with Metal Mario, which is an ability that was established, and I'm sorry, Super Mario historians, I may be getting this wrong, but at least what I remember him from was the original Smash Bros. On the N64. But of course, this being the Super Mario Galaxy movie, it ends with the cloud power and the drill head, which were power-ups. Sawyer, did you know those even existed?
No, I didn't know that.
So Melody told us her favorite part of the movie, which was Mr. Game & Watch in the climax. Was there a part in the beginning of the movie that you really liked?
It's kind of the beginning and kind of the middle.
Okay.
Bowser Jr. has the magic paintbrush is cool, but I also like when he steps in the paint and he turns black. That's the coolest thing.
Well, what I like about Bowser Jr. is something that I talked about briefly in non-spoilers, which is, unfortunately, this is called what? What is the movie called? Both of you just shouted out. What's the movie called?
Mario Galaxy.
And they don't really do a lot with Mario. Mario is in the movie, of course. He's the main character. But the most interesting part of the story has nothing to do with Mario. We can talk about this in full spoilers. The two main focuses are Peach and Rosalina, and we'll get there. And then we might as well talk about it now, which is Bowser Jr. and Bowser. And what I liked of what they did with Bowser is he's kind of a different Bowser than what we had in the first Mario movie. What is he like as a person, Melody, in the beginning of the movie?
He is like, I'll rule by your side for eternity if you let me grow big again. And then Mario gets all upset. And then he accidentally stomps on him, forgetting that makes him big.
Well, okay, so I saw this and I didn't really think it was an accident. I think it's sort of Mario just giving in. But in the beginning of the movie, because we have Bowser Jr. as the main bad guy, I would say, for most of the movie, Bowser seems to be at least trying to be a good guy. And then with Bowser Jr. coming back into his life, what happens to Bowser?
He's like, oh, this mini me is like, oh, I need to be bad again. Oh my gosh, I forgot all about my life.
Yeah, so Bowser goes from being an ally, a friend of Luigi and Mario, to becoming the bad guy that he was. And the relationship between Bowser Jr. and Bowser gets the most focus out of really anything in the movie. And that's really interesting, but one of the problems that I struggle with is, unfortunately, 2 movies in, Mario has even less to do than he did in the last one. This movie has even more characters. We'll get to Yoshi, I'm sure, at some point as well. But introducing Bowser Jr., who then makes Bowser the big bad at the end of the movie, which you talked about, the drawing of Mr. Game & Watch when they're trying to fight Dry Bones Bowser, who's really creepy looking, as well as Bowser Jr., you have Luigi and Mario, but they're sort of just on a mission on their own. And, of course, we know Rosalina, at least for the two of you, from Mario Kart. Sawyer, what did you think of the addition of Rosalina to the movie?
It's also cool in the movie how she has the wand, and in Mario Kart she doesn't.
Yeah, that's right. So in this version, and this is a fascinating thing, and I'm curious if this is going to be a talking point. In the Mario Galaxy games, we don't really know how Rosalina came to exist. But in this version, we learn how she is related to Princess Peach. Sawyer, how is Rosalina related to Princess Peach?
Because they tell us in the childhood that Rosalina had to send Peach far away because they were coming to take Peach.
So, and how are they related?
Because they're sisters. And also, together they can make grass on land.
Yeah, they have these cosmic abilities, which really does lean into kind of the power of Peach. That might be the only thing that really connects the two movies. Something that I want to talk about with you, Melody, is it's fascinating that we are in the 40th year of Mario existing. We saw the big 40 before the movie starts, the Nintendo opening, and they say in maybe 2 lines that Mario has feelings for Peach, but they don't really seem to go anywhere at all.
When Mario gives Peach the birthday present, that's kind of the end of Peach liking him.
Well, and what was, I think, one of my favorite elements of watching these movies with the two of you is your engagement with the Mario franchise is so much more different than mine. And I know, Melody, you and I had the same idea. What did you think of when you saw Peach with the umbrella?
I thought of Smash Bros. Because she has one of those moves. She puts up her umbrella and launches the other player.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to see how they put in the Easter eggs. One of my biggest criticisms of this film, though, is unfortunately it feels like there's so many things you're supposed to notice that the focus on an actual through line in story just doesn't seem to be there. Sawyer, I know you thought the movie was absolutely hilarious. Can you share with the audience what were some of your favorite jokes in the movie?
In the Mario Galaxy, one of my favorite parts was when Yoshi turned into a frog and then he's like trying to swim over to fight.
Oh, so yeah, we didn't even talk about that. That's a great pivot point, Sawyer, which is outside of Rosalina, Yoshi is one of the biggest additions to the movie. What did you think about them adding Yoshi to the story?
Good, because before that, Yoshi was in Mario Kart, but it wasn't in the movie, so that doesn't make sense.
Yes, I don't know if the movies are necessarily leaning into the canon of Mario Kart. This is, again, one of those things that separates the two of you from me, which was Yoshi was in a bunch of the games when I was growing up. And you know what I thought was a little funny was, so that Toad, who is kind of Mario and Luigi's sidekick in the first movie, he spends his whole adventure with Peach, and we get Yoshi and Yoshi's adventure. And what were some of the funny things you saw from Yoshi outside of his power-up at the end of the movie?
It was also like kind of funny because he was blue, and that's also in Mario Kart because they have a blue Yoshi, but it's not the frog.
Yeah, it's definitely fun to see what power-ups they tend to use. And then, of course, to end the film, and I was incorrect, and I'm a little disappointed of this, but I didn't think about the Mario Galaxy games because I've only played those the one time, is we get the red star, which gives Mario a whole different kind of abilities. Melody, we heard what Sawyer had to say about Peach and Rosalina. Rosalina, I know, is one of your favorite characters to be, of course, in Mario Kart. What did you think about the way that the movie used Rosalina in the story?
I think it was awesome because she shows as the mother of all of the stars and the guardian of the cosmos. And in the movie, she releases her weapon as in her wand. And in Mario Kart World, they use the giant ship that you can like blast off into. And yeah. They show that too. It's really cool.
Did you, something that I was a little frustrated by, because we know Rosalina is such a powerful and strong character, that her just being captured, I would have liked to have seen, because the movie just tells you outright that they're sisters. You know, sometimes you can tell a story and you can maybe hint at something being a realization. I think I would have preferred if the movie did that, because the connection to the first film is we know Peach wound up in the Mushroom Kingdom going through some sort of galactic portal, and then this movie answers that question for us. But do you think, I'll use the two of you, let's say Sawyer just gave you a way into a magic portal. Do you think you'd be a little mad at him at first?
Yes, because I wouldn't be able to see my family. I'd be like, who are these people? Stranger. Oh no, stranger danger. Get away from me!
Yeah, and we don't get to spend any time. I know we talked about Trolls 3, so this is a really good comparison, even though they're different studios, that when you're introducing siblings, and the irony, of course, is we have Mario and Luigi, who are, of course, brothers, that we don't get to see much of that relationship. I think one of my biggest problems with the movie is there's just too many characters. I think introducing Rosalina would have been cool, and Bowser Jr. I know Sawyer really dug Yoshi, but it feels like there's not enough space for all of them to do anything interesting. I've said already that they don't really do anything with Mario, which is a little frustrating. But going back to Peach's part of the adventure, what did you think about Peach's journey to find Rosalina?
I think it was funny because they introduced the child's toy from the 1990s, Rob, and she was like, and they were like, where is the flight deck? Where's the flight deck? And then they introduced this fox, which also reminds me of a book called Amulet, and which Fox McCloud is also a character in Smash Bros.
A great point to jump off to, Melody, which is in the first film, we had another Smash Bros. Character who happened to be Donkey Kong. But I'm just a little frustrated because Donkey Kong and Mario do have a history together. The very first Donkey Kong game happened to have a character who looked exactly like Mario, and we connect those characters because they have a shared history. Outside of Smash Bros., Fox McCloud and the Star Fox crew are only connected because of that. So just the interjection of him, I get he flies through space. That character's fun. Sawyer, what did you think about the introduction of Fox McCloud?
It was cool because they introduced Fox McCloud, but wherever they are in space, they try to get to Bowser to make him good guy again, but Bowser Jr. is just forcing him to be a bad guy.
That's a great point, and also something we haven't touched on, and I know you guys found this funny, but so that's the one real hurdle between the two of them is they're flying with Star Fox, or Fox McCloud, trying to find Rosalina, and Bowser Jr. are going back and forth. We see the cute little puppet show that Bowser made for Bowser Jr. when he was extra small, and Bowser doesn't want Bowser Jr. to kill Mario and his friends, and just for no apparent reason, he's got a gun that turns them into
babies.
And of course, baby Mario and baby Luigi are adorable and they're funny, but it just happens. I think my biggest problem with this movie is you could call it the Super Mario Galaxy movie and things happen, where they don't explain where the baby gun came from, did they, Sawyer?
No, I'm thinking Bowser Jr. just made it somehow.
Yeah, but it just sort of exists. And that sequence with the T-Rex is ridiculous. I know, Sawyer, you thought it was absolutely hilarious when baby Mario was coming out of the T-Rex's nose. And it's a silly, fun sequence. They're babies and then they're not babies. It just feels like an unnecessary hurdle where something that I really thought was a problem was Bowser Jr. is able to track Bowser, which is fine, but then they just sort of show up whenever the Mario people are trying to do stuff. We know in the first movie, they're all in the Mushroom Kingdom. So within reason, you could figure out where people are, but the space travel through this is kind of wild. What did you think, Melody, of Peach's fighting with all the villains before she's met Fox McCloud?
It was fun. It was like they were in a casino-rama with a frog that, like, whenever he talks, bubbles pop out of his mouth. And it was really fun because she uses the Smash Bros. Move with the umbrella, shooting it up, just launching enemies away from her, being like, get away from me.
Well, and who also happened to be there with Wart?
The Yuki Birdo, who her character speaks for itself. She's basically a bird that shoots balls out of his mouth, like the game, Doodle Jump, that you can play if you press Rogers, if you have like this special remote.
So overall, I think it's fairly clear that there's a lot that works for kids. You guys have given great opinions on what worked for the movie with you, analyzing all of the different parts. And that is, at the end of the day, what's going to work for this movie is the sum of the collection of Easter eggs, references, and beautiful animation. I think that's something that won't get talked about enough, unfortunately, which is the Mario Galaxy movies. And I know you two have seen everything made by Illumination because they are the Sing, the Despicable Me, the Minions people. That the two Mario movies are easily the most gorgeous things they've animated. My real hope, and I don't know if this is necessarily going to happen because of how much money this made over its 5-day opening weekend, but I would really like to have all those Easter eggs and nostalgic moments, but be woven more effectively in a story. Because I know you two liked the Mario movie, but I think it's safe to say that even the two of these aren't your favorite films. Like, they're fun and we had a good time watching them, but I don't really feel like they're going to stand the test of time. We've watched other movies in our free time. It doesn't feel like it's ones we've watched a lot, but thank you, the two of you, so much for joining me to talk about this. It's great to get the perspective of people that these movies are aimed at. So do you think people should listen to the question of the week responses and listener mail?
Obviously, yes.
Thank you so much for that. Sawyer, thank you so much for joining me.
Can I ask you a question? Just fun?
There's something I've been meaning to ask you.
I ask the questions, you answer the questions.
Why do you ask questions to which you already know the answers?
Did that count as a question?
Yes.
Damn it.
Last week's question of the week was, what is your favorite Super Mario game? Dylan Pollock writes in, any Mario Party game where you can get overly competitive with friends and family and then get derailed by BS bonus stars. But I feel like rubber banding, Dylan, is a staple within the Mario games. Look at Blue Shells and Bullets and Mario Kart. Jermaine writes in, favorite Mario game is Super Mario World, as it introduces Yoshi and some of the pseudo 3D games where you actually can punch Yoshi to make his tongue come out. That definitely was a part of those early games. And then Scotty Cameron writes in, I am such a devoted Star Trek fan that I just got William Shatner's signature on his novel, Captain's Glory, and a picture taken with him. Scotty, you have to send me that. I need to see that. Those Pikel and Download are among my favorite minor and reoccurring characters in Invincible, where I'm curious what you think so far, Scotty, of how they're adapting that part of the storyline. And then to this week's question of the week. I have only played a handful of the Super Mario games. The best ones I have played is Super Mario 64, and my personal favorite is New Super Mario Bros., which I believe that was a Wii game. He says he'll also have to give a shout out to Mario Paint because I spent 40 hours making a Nickelback song. Are you trying to appease my Canadianisms with that, Scotty? I greatly appreciate that. Given my age, the game that I've played the most that I think would have to classify as my favorite Super Mario game, it's Super Mario 3, but specifically on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, because the Raccoon Mario is my favorite power-up. It's so cool, and I just loved getting to be able to fly and use it as a weapon. I know it's similar to the cape, but I played Super Mario Bros. 3 first, and then it was also included, of course, in Super Mario All-Stars, the original one on the SNES. Thank you to everybody who submitted their answers for Question of the Week. But if you didn't answer that, I know what you're thinking. You want to know what this week's Question of the Week is. We know that Shrinking is getting a season 4, even though initially it was planned to be only 3 seasons. Now, of course, we had Kobe Smulders in season 2 and in season 3, and that is the inspiration for the Question of the Week. Which How I Met Your Mother alumni would you like to see in the 4th season of Shrinking? To let me know, you can comment below, specifically on YouTube and Spotify, or you can email the podcast, filmreelistspod@gmail.com. I look forward to your answers and to hear me react to them. You can, of course, listen to next week's episode when I'm going to be reviewing Shrinking Season 3 in its entirety. I'm really looking forward to that. And especially with 11 episodes for a third season, it's really shifted the perspective and the momentum on where the show could be going in the 4th season. So I'm really looking forward to that. And if you're tracking the episode numbers for the podcast, you can see that we are slowly approaching episode 200. Regardless of this, if this is your first time listening, there's going to be a Google form attached in the episode descriptions for the podcast moving forward. There's a questionnaire that I would love each and every listener to participate in, because it will allow me the opportunity to go back and look at the history of what fans have loved and enjoyed with the Film Realist podcast. So if you would like to be a part of the episode 200 celebration, please fill out that form. I'm really looking forward to it. If you are watching this podcast on YouTube, please consider liking the podcast and subscribing. We are so close to reaching that 500 subscriber mark, and it would be absolutely incredible to do that before getting to episode 200. It would only enhance the celebration of that milestone of 200 episodes. Thank you so much for listening to the show. My name is Kyle Naranya, and I will see you next time.